growth at Vigilant isn't about our revenue number. It's about our capability.
All right, you're listening to Being Built. I'm the host, Aaron Davis, and the founder of Recless Tech. We're an executive search and tech staffing firm. We hire innovators, leaders, technical specialists who will transform your business, help you go to the next level. Here with Chris Nyhuis, the founder of Vigilant, and glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here.
Great to be here, for sure.
So let's go back to the beginning of Vigilant. Tell us a little bit about what compelled you to start it, and how did you get your start?
Yeah, so I was a CISO at an organization in the automotive industry. We were a startup. I was employee number 11. We had built the organization up, had clients all over the automotive industry, major OEMs, and we were ingesting data from their dealer management systems. And so purchasing information, financial data, things like that. And pretty early on in the cyber industry, CISOs didn't exist then. Things weren't very far along. Very rudimentary approaches to cybersecurity, and even rudimentary understanding of the threat in the private industry. Right, the public sector with government, they were dealing with direct threats, but the private sector wasn't as much unless you were in defense.
Okay,
and what was interesting is, I started digging down into some of the information that we had in terms of access, looking at access logs, looking at what was going on our servers, and just started seeing some really odd stuff. Now, before that, I had worked for a company that transmitted or transported frozen food all over the United States.
Okay.
And that was when I think I first started realizing that hackers could be evil. If that makes sense? Because we're transporting food, and you would think that hackers would want to shut food down, right? Food distribution down, which is true, right? If you could shut food distribution down, you start to starve a lot of people. But one thing that I really noticed there for the first time, even before the automotive side of the world, was that we had these ammonia control systems. Because if you compress ammonia, it will rapidly freeze things around it. It's just a great refrigerant. But those systems are pretty old, and they were connected to really old operating systems. And they had valves that you could literally, if you could get on that system, you could remotely open valves and release ammonia.
Oh, wow.
And ammonia will actually melt your lungs if you breathe it in too many parts per million. We were starting to see some attacks coming at us, and like, well, what would someone want to do here? What could you? And we had to start thinking, well, what are the evil things that you would do if you had access to this plan? And as you got deeper and deeper, you went, oh crap, that's what someone could do. And that's when security became real for me, because it was this moment where you realize this isn't bots. This isn't someone just trying to turn your computer off. This is someone that could have the potential to kill people remotely.
Yeah, they're really trying to do harm.
Right, and it's this evil moment. And then, it's all, there's disruption of life, but there's also disruption of fiscal, there's disruption of all kinds of things. And that led to moving on to the next organization. I was at the automotive company.
Okay.
And that's where I was, ended up being CISO after a while, and, managing all of our security operations and our just operations in general from an IT standpoint. And so I just started peeling back the layers. I'm like, okay, well, we saw the stuff the last company I was at. Let's peel back these layers now. And we are seeing threat actor activity. But the crazy thing about it is we were doing all the things that the industry told you to do. We were doing pen tests, where we would pay someone to come out and attack our environment. We were doing vulnerability assessments. We had great firewalls in place. We put the right equipment in. None of those systems had any information on any of those attacks.
Really?
And it blew my mind, because I'm like, we're spending so much money, and none of these things, not one of them saw what was going on. And, really started trying to dig into that a little bit more. Started calling some of my peers in the market and competitors. And they're like, we're not going to talk to you about this. We're competitors.
Right.
And I'm like, guys, I want to help you, because I'm seeing some things that might be interesting to you, because we're in the same industry. Someone might be attacking you the same way. And saw some other things too there that, getting in the mind of a hacker is that, they weren't attacking us with known automotive industry attacks. They were attacking us with things that were known to other industries.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
like
right.
what?
So like banking Trojans or things like that, right? Like trying to attack us with things that other industries would work and would use or would be attacked with. And I started, the way my brain works, it's very, I just kind of think of all the different paths. I love chess because of that.
Yeah.
when you start to put together evil and disruption and all these other things, and you start to think of, well, where could these things go? And you start digging into these security technologies, you realize that firewall manufacturers selling to me that they know how to help the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. I'll check the box for automotive. Well, when that happens, what they're really telling you is, hey, our system isn't powerful enough to take care of all the threats out there.
It just secures you this way.
We're going to secure you because you're an automotive industry. And it's a bait and switch in some ways, because they're saying, hey, check this box. You're going to love it because it's curated to your industry. Mm-hmm. But what they're really saying is, we're putting that checkbox there because we're not our system can't handle what it really needs to. So we're going to make it look at a smaller data set. Mm-hmm. And threat actors know that.
Yeah.
They can buy that same system. And so when they see the checkbox, they go, oh man, this company probably has that checkbox there. I'm never going to attack them with something that's underneath the checkbox. I'm going to attack them with something else. And when you really zoom out, you see that everybody uses Windows or Macs. We all use the same hardware and the same software.
Sure.
We all use Windows, So there's not a whole lot of unique things at the user level that really would differentiate an attack to automotive and attack to another company, right?
I see.
And so, I just started to think about all these things, and I started seeing this trend over and over again that the things we were buying, the companies we were working with, the security industry companies, they didn't really approach it like you were fighting war. They were approaching it like they were running a business.
Like you're selling widgets.
Right. You're selling widgets. And they were approaching it like a business that they needed to reduce, increase margin and reduce spend and streamline and all those things you would do in an organization like normal. But when you're in an industry where you have to defend against an attacker that is striving to take you down, you have to put everything you can against them.
Yeah.
And that mindset, the way you would normally run a business, just doesn't work in a cyber company. And that's why you see all these startups that come out that have amazing ideas and things that just blow the socks off the industry. Then they get purchased, and then the effectiveness goes away. Right? Because things that work don't work in an organization that thinks outside of the warfare mindset.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what a fitting role for you then to be, the sergeant or the commander of that hit squad, right? Thinking about it like warfare, right? Being on the offensive, attacking those would-be threats or those threat actors as you described them.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense as far as what compelled you.
Yeah.
Right. Like
that was a compelling moment.
Yeah.
That realization.
As you described, you worked with several other security vendors providing various tools and services and offerings. What was your experience like utilizing and partnering with other vendors who were doing what you're doing now or selling to the people that you're now selling to?
You mean at the time?
Yeah. Before you started.
Before when I was a CISO? Oh, yeah. It was frustrating because I'd call them. I'm like, hey guys, what about this? Deaf ears, I mean, yeah. And what was interesting too is the higher up you went, it was more deaf, right? Because you would talk to the people, people on the ground, right? The analysts on the front end that are fighting, they see it. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, exactly. You're dead on.
They know the weakness of the weapons they're selling you.
They know the weakness. And they're like, yeah, we need to fix this. And what's even interesting later on in life, like some of the people that I know that started companies around when we did and they sold, they're frustrated because they were the same people. They were seeing this is, they had a mission. We're going to go fix this.
They built something great and then it got acquired and then it just kind of became outdated and fizzled out.
Yeah. There's this compelling moment of going, wait, we need to do something different. And it wasn't just a different approach to the direct problem, but it was a different type of business too. Because if I just built a business in the same way that everyone else I saw around me, my peers, my friends that were starting businesses, I was going to turn out, we were going to turn out the same way. And the technology was going to go away.
Yeah.
The approach, that was the impetus of change for me. It was like, hey, we need to go fight this battle, but we also have to do it in a way that, that is sustainable. We have to do it, which led to a whole lot of different ways of how we build Vigilant, but it has to be sustainable. We have to do it in a way that allows us to stay in control of the mission, right? The mission parameters, right? And my wife and I wanted, if we're building this legacy business, one thing that was always interesting for us in life in general is that, beyond just making money, right, there has to be some purpose to what it does.
That's right.
And so we said, hey, if we're going to go do this business thing, we want to make sure that one, we're taking care of our clients like none other. The experience that they have has to be so different that it just blows their mind, right? And they know that they're covered. Two, I wanted a company that was going to literally change generations in the lives of their team members. Because I'd been part of organizations that didn't do that, that burned people out, that ran people into the ground. I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to our team. And third, we wanted to make sure that, externally, we had an external purpose from what we were doing every day, because just as an external driver for us. And my wife and I were involved in a lot of things to do with orphan care back then. And we said, okay, well, why don't we take 25% of our profit and put it right towards orphan care? Being involved with helping solve problems, helping fund organizations.
25%? That's a big commitment, man.
Yeah, it was, but for us, it was, what's interesting is now, I know now on this end of it, I see what it's done in our company and for our team and for our why. I've seen how it's helped us to build the organization strong. But on the front end of that, we went, ooh, because we bootstrapped the whole thing. We sold everything. So
there were some lean times there.
Yeah. We sold everything we had. We
finally got $100. Right. Give a quarter of it away.
Yeah. We cashed in our 401ks. Like we funded everything, and it's time. We had 6 months runway.
Yeah. Wow.
We had tested the waters a little bit before we jumped completely. Started building some.
Right, it wasn't reckless, but it was dangerous.
It was dangerous. Right? It was dangerous. We had 3 kids at the time, and we still do, obviously. But we had our 3 kids, and it was like, oh my gosh, let's go do this. But and we that's grown now into we're working in anti-human trafficking and things in those realms. And what's really crazy is that the cyber world really melds into that.
Yeah, there's some overlapping interest there.
Yeah, so a lot of the technology we've built is, we're now working to
a dual
put
purpose,
that right towards
making profit that you can drive that way, and then also building technology that's useful for the purpose.
Right, and the one thing I think, 14 years later, the thing I think, it completely always amazes me, and it's something I wouldn't have I didn't think of at the beginning, but when you start something, you think it's going to look like
Yeah.
And 14 years later, it doesn't look anything like it looks like. It's way better than I thought it could. We've had way better adventures and way better just time with people, and we're doing things I didn't even think of back then. But the thing that is true is that if you keep moving forward and you don't stop, then you'll get to where you're going, and it'll be even better than you thought it was going to be.
Before we started recording, you mentioned to me that Vigilant was built and continues to be run with the intent of it being a legacy organization that outlives you, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, hearing you talk about the purpose of the organization and how you've seen some other players in the space build to sell, and then their objectives and even their technology and capabilities get compromised, is the legacy commitment and the idea, the desire to keep the organization alive long term, not sell it. Is that a purpose-driven decision?
Absolutely. Like I was saying, all those things, like those missions, when you do those, when you're not for sale, right? When you have those missions, and I didn't plan this at the beginning, but being on this side of it, I'm realizing that those are all burn the ships things. Because when you burn the ships and you say, we're not going to get investors ever, your team has to, there's this like, oh crap moment, because you go, wait a second.
We better make money.
We better make money.
Yeah.
And no one's coming to save us. And our technology better work, because we can't pay our way out of a bad moment.
Right.
From a publicity standpoint. And,
right.
And when you say things like, hey, these people, and you commit, we're going to be here for you, and we're going to take care of you externally, right? These external missions, they rely on us to show up and work hard every day, right? And our clients, when we say, hey, and I mean, another burn the ship moment for us, and we're the only ones in the entire industry that does this. And there's a couple companies that just came out. Well, we can talk about the difference here if you want, but they just came out and they started saying this, but since we started, we said, hey, we're not launching our technology until we can guarantee to our client that we can, in an unlimited way, provide forensic analysis for them for free if they have an incident. No one does that. And so what that means, like when you look at an incident, about 80% of the cost is the forensic investigation.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Not the bounty that they got to pay or any of that stuff.
The bounty can be high, right? But you have to do the forensic investigation and all that. So, you might have a $1.5 million incident, right? Which is the average. 80% of that's going to be the forensic cost.
Wow.
And so we said, hey, we are going to share risk with you. Because in our industry, a lot of companies will say, hey, we're an extension of your team. And what I've found is, as a consumer, as a CISO back then, right? That was crap.
Yeah.
You're not an extension of my team.
I'm the 8th call and I'll get back to you eventually.
Right. Yeah, right.
It's like an insurance claim.
Exactly. It's like an insurance claim, and when everything's crappy, you're not up at 2 a.m. with me. You're not an extension of my team. And in reality, unless someone really shares risk with you, they're really not an extension of your team. They're not even on your team.
How many times have you had to do the forensic analysis for a customer who suffered a breach?
So since we started, and this is back to where I said, we are not launching. And the technology we deploy in our revision, in our updates and things like that, has to work, or we don't launch it, right? And since we started, we have not had one company, have a down incident that we protected. And we protect clients all over the world. We're a global company now, from mid-market all the way into enterprise. We have not had one client have an incident that took them down.
Wow.
Now threat actors get in, right? There's no way to stop that. There's so many doors and anyone just clicks a link or whatever. What we say is we're going to find them faster than anyone else will. And we're going to find them so fast that the forensic investigation, the forensic analysis is
minimal.
It's minimal. Yeah. And that's kind of the key, right? Because the other part of that unlimited forensics is, what a lot of other companies' models, they're event driven. So bad thing happens, which by the way is way too late. If your security program is built on an event, way too late. Event happens, you find it, you then do an incident response on it. One, it's way too late. But in order to do that IR, those companies have to call up and say, hey, there's an incident. Can we do an incident response? It's going to be more money. Because most of the companies in this industry, their revenue model is built on post-event. They make most of the money in this industry. Most of the revenue in this industry is post-event.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And so, we said, hey, we're not going to be that company. Our revenue model is going to be on the front end of that. When you're successful, that's where we're making money. If it crosses that line, we're sharing the risk, right? And that's what we said. And so what that also does for us is it gives us liberty to go the extra mile in a forensic investigation when it's small, to stop it from getting big.
Right, because it's a more affordable, escalation point, right? It's a more affordable chaos.
Right, exactly.
Everybody can deal with chaos a little bit.
Right. And we don't have to call and say, hey, do you mind if we do this extra forensic work? No, because it's already built into our model. We're doing it anyway. So it gives you license. It allows you to track down the things when they matter. But it's also a burn the ships thing because my team has to write code that works.
Yeah.
Because it affects them personally. My team has to make sure that they're doing analysis because it affects them personally. They have to go the extra mile because we share the risk.
That's really interesting. If you're not taking 80% of your revenue from post event, like like the industry does typically, and you're, by necessity, investing more on the front end to keep these events from happening, does that affect your ability to sell or your pricing, or does that challenge you on the front end when it comes to your customers tend to be the more mature, experienced CISOs or CIOs, or how's that affect you on the front end?
It's kind of ebbed and flowed. The industry's changed a bit over the years. The consumer, the decision maker used to be the hands and feet on the ground people that were interfacing with the threat all the time. So they're like, hey, totally get what you're doing. Yes, that makes sense. And so
the tactician, the doer.
The tactician, the doer. So the explanation of what we did, when we walk in and we show a tactician, hey, here's the information we can give you. They're like, yes, that's amazing. Are you kidding me? The type of intel we can give them, the type of detections we can do. We can do detections that other people can't do because if they did them, they would have so many false positives that their teams would be bogged down. And so they get excited if it's a tactician. What's happened in the industry now is the decision maker has been elevated inside the organization, which is good, but they're not always in tune with what that information means technically, but they're more in tune with what it means from a risk standpoint. So we've had to change the way we talk about what we do. So even like shared risk, we talked about unlimited incident response until literally about a year and a half ago, and then we went, oh wait. They don't understand that. Let's talk about shared risk. And so we said, okay, because no one really knows, like, unless you've been through an incident or you know someone that has,
right? You
don't know that incidents disrupt your life. Like you can not sleep for 8 days. I've had CEOs, where we've been called into an incident because we'll also do incident response for companies that aren't currently clients of ours. Where I've been called into an incident, or our team will all fly down, meet with the C-level. And, the meeting's over, everyone walks out, just me and the CEO. They sit in their chair, they slump down, and they start bawling.
Yeah.
Because
it's an overwhelming burden.
It's an overwhelming moment.
Everything you were doing, all your strategy, hiring your chief sales officer, moving, going to meet with your new customer, all that gets put on hold.
It's on hold.
And everything's on fire and you got to put the fire out.
Everything's on fire. And the tragic part about that is that if you really understand your threat and you really do cybersecurity well, you can be so far in front of those moments, you never have to entertain them. But they're not prepared for that. They're not prepared for literally fighting for their life.
It's interesting you still do incident response work for non-customers, customers who haven't bought your products and services to protect. And I imagine that keeps you connected to the vulnerabilities that are being faced out there and the sensitivity and the impact that has on customers. I assume that impacts your ability to communicate to new customers and engage them in the products that you guys provide.
It does, yeah. We actually, what's interesting, we have a lot of clients come to us under that way, and they stay. The way we do an incident response is no different than the way we protect our clients every day. If we do an incident, we come in and we say, hey, we need to put our tech in because we've developed technology we call source of truth technology. It's similar to like in a crime scene, when you go in and if you walk in, I used to do some crime scene investigation competitions. And when you walk into a crime scene investigation, one of the first things you want to ask is, well, two things. You want to look at the ceiling because no one ever does. That's where a ton of stuff is.
Just to look where nobody looks.
Yeah. When you walk in rooms, start practicing walking in it, looking at a ceiling first, because it's generally the most untouched place in an organization.
I painted this ceiling because there was a watermark right there.
Yeah, right. But it's
which told me that there was a gutter leak.
Yeah, right. Exactly. If you never looked, you wouldn't know.
Right.
Ceilings tell a lot of story. But also, if you walk in and say, hey, do you have video camera evidence? Yes. Why is that more important? Because I can watch a video camera and I can see very quickly that a bullet casing flew across the room and landed in a sugar packet holder where someone maybe never looks, right? I just have to look at that and then walk over and grab it. I don't have to print an entire room. I can just look at where they touched and then I just go right to that spot. So it's a dramatic game changer. And most cybersecurity is done in a post-event way, right? Or it's being done with with data that's not very not what's called high fidelity. It doesn't have a lot of truth behind it. You got to sift through it. It takes a long time. We just walk into our client environments and we create logs right away that we can trust. It's firsthand evidence. We're not secondhand evidence is proven. You can convince people that they saw all kinds of things. It's the same thing with logs, right? It's the same thing with evidence that's that you collect. But if you can create it, it's different. And so by creating this firsthand evidence, we can walk into a room and immediately see what's going on. And we do that. We approach incidents that way too. We just deploy our technology, put it in place. We get information from other areas in their infrastructure, and we could rapidly detect. And we've minimized. We've had incidents that normally would take in the industry 8-10 weeks, and we've done them in less than 4 to 6 days.
So I get the analogy, comparing primary evidence to secondary observed evidence or whatever, and how unreliable or influenceable or manipulatable secondary or secondhand information or evidence, quote unquote, evidence can be. I don't quite understand how looking at the logs versus creating the logs is different. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So most of the industry now is driven by SIM. You probably heard of that, SIM. So
I've heard of it. I don't understand
like security event logging. So basically what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I have all these security technologies in my environment, or I'll have firewalls or routers, or I'll have endpoints, or I'll have whatever it is, printers, whatever. And I'm going to send all these logs to a centralized location, and I'm going to run those through algorithms, right? And those algorithms are going to do analysis on them. Now, what's been happening over the years, right, until recently, is those analysis engines just run behavioral learning, or they'll run, detection algorithms against them, which just run the data through and try to see, does something trip, right? The major flaw in that is that you're collecting information from potentially flawed devices.
Interesting. Oh yeah.
And you're also collecting information just like that. When I was telling you, you check the box for automotive and you get attacked with banking.
Yeah, too narrow a set of data.
Too narrow a set of data. So if you're collecting information and you have the checkbox in automotive, but you get attacked with a banking Trojan, well, you missed the initial compromise of that system. So now you have a compromised system you don't even know about sending you information. Right. So here's where threat actors
So you got a recorded interview of a witness to the event that in which the questions were not appropriate.
Right, exactly. Right, absolutely. And so if you put that in the mindset of warfare, like no one in their right mind would ever fight warfare that way, ever.
Right.
Or you would lose. Literally, you would lose. Right. But yet everybody, most of the majority of the companies out there do it that way, and that's why cybersecurity is losing for the majority. I mean, we literally are. The industry's losing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they just are.
Isn't it great to be the best among the worst?
It is the great to be the best among the worst.
It's similar in my industry.
Yeah, right.
So I have people tell me like, "Wow, you do things so different. You're so much better," and I just feel so average. I mean, like I just show up and do responsible stuff and actually do what I say. And it's like the ability to be outstanding sometimes is just a function of people just completely sucking in your industry.
Right. It's just a function of that, right? Yeah. But in this case, it's even illogical, right? Because what threat actors do now is they realize that organizations will do all of their decision making, how they operate against incidents, what intel they build, where they operate, from what logs tell you. So all they do now, it's so simple and it's diabolical at the same time, is they just jump on these systems and the system becomes a joystick, and they literally just guide you to wherever they want you to go.
Just dump bad logs or whatever else they want, right?
Or they'll attack over here because they want you to look over work an incident, and they'll work over here. We did an incident for a casino a few years ago. Not MGM. I know you guys, when this comes out, everyone will already know about MGM.
Right.
And I feel for MGM. All these organizations that are out there, when you get hit, it sucks.
It's devastating.
And they're fighting so hard right now. And everyone's got to commend them, But we got called in this organization, and this can't tell you the details of the incident, but basically, they had been attacked. They found the attacker. Some things went down. They brought an incident response company in. They came in, gave them a clean bill of health, and they left. And one of the C-suite leaders just. They had been around the industry for a long time. They were one of those doers, and they had been elevated. And their gut just said something else.
Right, doesn't feel like it's
doesn't
enough.
Feel right. And that is the case because in most incident responses, because the incident responder, especially with the proliferation of cyber insurance, the incident responders coming in, they're not working for you. They're working for your insurance company.
They're trying to make sure that the scope they committed to is covered and everything else is exposed.
Right, exactly.
They don't intend to make everything else exposed. They just don't care about it.
They don't care about it.
Whatever their liability is, they come in and verify that they've checked their boxes and
Right. Yep. And they're there like an adjuster anyway. Like they're coming in to see, did you do all the stuff you said you were supposed to do? If not, they're not going to cover it. But yet the incident's over, so now you're on the hook for paying for the incident, by the way.
Wow.
And so, but they came in and they missed it. Because what happened was the actor came in, created a diversion, let them run the incident response, waited till they all left to start carrying out what they were really after.
Wow.
And so they brought us in, and when we
intentionally flagged them, exposed themselves just to throw the organization off.
Yeah. I mean, when we walk into an incident, it's a non-client, we're coming in and saying, okay, I don't care about the history here. We're going to take that as data, but our scope is everything.
Yeah.
And we're gonna walk in. I was just speaking yesterday. I told the story when I first, the moment I first realized that, I realized evil in cyber back at that previous company. When I first realized about fighting evil was when I watched the movie Red Dawn.
Okay, I haven't seen it. If I've seen it, it's been forever.
It's a great movie. And it's awesome. But the teacher in the movie is talking about Genghis Khan. And what he would do is he would basically circle a city, put his soldiers shoulder to shoulder, but far enough distance away they could see each other's shoulder. They weren't right side to side, but they would see like maybe 200 yards away. And they would literally surround this whole place. And they would ride inward. And they would kill every man, woman, child, everything. And they would just ride in and kill everything. Now, it was genius because he created a perimeter that got smaller and smaller and smaller. And he knew 100% forensically
that there's nothing that got out.
Nothing that got out. And so he gets to the center and he knows everything's done. He knows he won. So we really started approaching cybersecurity that way. Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is really a physics and a logic problem. And zeros and ones is all electrical signals. How do you start to create that hunt, right? We approach incidents that way. And so that way you don't miss what's happening.
So for you in cybersecurity, how do you ensure that you've literally identified every endpoint, entry point, risk? Like how do you know you've been thorough, that you've covered everything? Right. Seems like it would be really complex and it would be easy to miss something. Right?
It's not. I mean, like organizations, you have to understand a couple of things first. You have to understand threat landscape, right? Like what are the entry points to an organization's infrastructure? Little harder now with the cloud, proliferation of the cloud and distributed workforce. COVID made things way different.
Sure.
But you still have the ability to understand what's the critical boundaries of this organization's requirements to do business.
Okay.
You understand that pretty quickly, and then you can deploy technology. And we've patented technology that deploys inside an organization, deploys rapidly, doesn't need behavioral learning to do what it does, because behavioral learning takes time, right? 60, 80 days.
Wow. Okay.
AI takes even longer. And by the way, if anyone's listening and your security technology is built on AI, your detection defense, it's totally a lie.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because as we're learning, large language models that make decisions and just machine learning in general is very, very expensive. It takes a long time to do. The systems that you have in your environment, the PC running the endpoint, doesn't have the processing power to do what it needs to do from an AI standpoint.
Interesting. Okay.
And but we set these perimeters up, and when you're putting these things in place, one, you're invisible to a threat, so they can't identify where you are. So it creates a little bit of chaos for them. Because in a battle, whoever has the most visibility wins.
That's right.
So we walk in and we say, okay, we're going to take their visibility away the moment we walk in. They don't even know we deploy. So they continue to do their things, and we set up these perimeters. The way in which we look at data allows us to see if we have a visibility gap. And so we just close it really quickly. And we put that in place. That's our most important thing. Where a lot of people deal with incidents and they do things incorrectly is they go in and they try to, recover first. Right. Or because they want to get back online. Right. And by doing that, you actually make mistakes. So we're like, look, you're
like
not
spraying water down a driveway. You don't know which way, don't know which way the hill goes. Right.
Like it could, So let's set up a perimeter till we know it's sound. Let's be shoulder to shoulder. We're good. And then nothing's going to get in and out. And then we just start moving in. And we'll put in organizations, instead of installing software on every single application or every single system you have, because of that perimeter, we can say, put it here, put it there, put it there. So it's way, way faster. And that's how we engage new clients. You know, when we engage a new client, we assume that they have a threat actor there until we've proven they don't. So even with a new client, we're doing an incident response.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And then we say, okay,
you treat it like a compromised system, whether you have any evidence of that or not.
Right. Yeah. And we can do it rapidly. I mean, now we started doing what we call proof of vigilance, right? Because we're not trying to prove a concept. We know it works, right? We're trying to prove whether or not your environment is at the level it needs to be. And we'll do it for free for 7 days.
Interesting.
Put our technology in for 7 days. What's really exciting about that, and was scary for us at first, is you can sell on a demo you control, right? That's easy. You can say, I'm going to put a bunch of data in a UI, and I'm going to put all the alerts in there I want. It's hard to say, give me a completely greenfield environment. Let's put our services in, and in 7 days, we'll tell you more about your environment than you ever know. We do that. We approach it like it's a greenfield. We approach it like it's compromised, and we hunt. And then we create a baseline, and then we help you make forensic decisions to minimize your costs, to more rapidly respond to things faster, and in essence, make security boring.
Yeah,
because
as it should be.
As it should be.
Who's your kind of ideal customer or your target customer? Who are the people that tend to come to you the most and benefit most from what you guys do?
Yeah, what's really interesting is in today's world, it's back to the industry and industry. If you have revenue, you're a target. The larger enterprises, we work a lot with larger enterprises.
They tend to have the most to lose.
They tend to have the most to lose. But the other problem there is that they tend to feel like they're all set more than anyone else.
They've done a bunch of stuff. They spent a bunch of money, so they think they've done it.
Yeah. And they've got procurement teams that don't understand the speed at which this has to happen. So, we went to a major retailer a few years ago, sat down with their IT staff, showed them what we do. The IT staff's like, oh, yes, we absolutely need this. Went to the procurement team, and they said, hey, it's February. We only receive new vendors in January of every year. and they had an incident 4 months later.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. And businesses at that level struggle. So, enterprise is great because once you start working with them, they really get it. And, it's good, but it's...
As long as you've got a champion inside who's going to make sure that the technical decisions that are clear are clear all the way through the bureaucracy, right?
Yeah. What you find in the industry, this is something that's pretty crazy now, though, in the enterprise side of things, is you've got cybersecurity companies paying off decision makers in the enterprise, and so that's also a barrier of entry.
Wow.
To us, which is really, it's pretty shady. It's been going on for years, but. A lot of people don't like when I talk about that because they're like,
you like to think the best of everybody, right?
But it's true, and you find that out. So that's a struggle. We love organizations that are in the upper mid market.
Yeah. Same. I mean, because the people who make decisions are the people who do the things, and there's just a little bit more connectivity, right?
Yeah. And they understand.
They've got a lot to lose, the big stakes, big decisions, but they're more communicative. They're more nimble.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have a shared risk model, you need your client to realize what's at stake, so they respond with you. Because that way you're partnering.
That $100 million company or that $500 million company is going to appreciate a partnership caliber relationship a lot more than the $20 billion company.
Oh, way more, way more. Now, again, once you show them what you can do at the enterprise level. And you can, because enterprise organizations stand to save a significant amount of money when they work with us.
Yeah, one incident, and that's worth your lifetime of.
Right. Yeah. But even then, they have so many stacked on technologies that they don't really use very well. And one of the things we can do too is we can come in and tell you whether tech's working or not. And so enterprise organizations tend to have way more spend than they need to, and we can help them rip those things out
just by filtering through the security interests,
by being there for them. So, but again, it's hard to show them that that's a thing, because at the enterprise too, you tend to have people that have latched on to logos and things like that. The companies that respond the most, that really want to, that they really want to grapple together and partner together are that upper mid-market.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're big. They have a lot to lose, but they're not so big they can't talk to each other.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, healthcare is a great clients for us too, because there's a lot of acquisitions in the healthcare industry right now. And so we work with some larger acquiring, organizations that are acquiring these healthcare companies. And
you treat that like an incident, right?
Right. So every acquisition, this is what's been really cool, is we've gotten into a lot of M&A. And when you're doing M&A, one of the things that happens is a press release happens way before the purchase happens. When that takes place, the threat actors see it.
They start preparing.
And they actually go into whichever organization they think is the least prepared. And then they just wait. And they just sit there. And what's really interesting about it is they know when the acquisition is going to happen. So they'll put a timer sometimes on their reverse tunnel. Like they'll put a piece of software in that creates a backdoor. They'll just let it sit. So when people are doing vulnerability assessments or doing checklists, they'll never see it. But those systems will every once in a while just ping out, like check in, see if the timer's changed or whatever. And so what we'll do is we'll go in pre-acquisition. We'll put our technology in, do an assessment. We'll baseline the company. And we'll say, yep, it's solid. What that does for the purchasing company is they say, hey, now I have an asset I'm looking at buying. I can guarantee the valuation's not going to go down because, in the past year, we've seen companies get purchased and their valuation goes to zero because they had an incident.
Right. And the incident's about manipulating the stock or whatever else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that incident, generally, on average right now, the incidents go within inside an organization 246 days on average without being detected. So if you buy an organization from the date of purchase back 246 days.
You bought a tumor. You just didn't know.
You just didn't know.
It was there.
And so we'll go in, identify it, protect it. An organization will purchase, maintains the value of the organization, protects it. Sometimes when you see an incident there already, it actually changes the valuation too. So it's a really great thing for the acquiring organization. But it's also great for the company that's being acquired because
they can fix it.
They can fix it beforehand. And then the acquisition happens. Then we say, okay, good. Now we can connect the two networks. And that's one of the things that happens in acquisitions a lot is they wait forever to connect the two companies. So
it slows down their integration.
Right.
Because they've got risk aversion or whatever.
Right. But since we're there, it's like you can immediately connect the two networks and everything's good.
They can move much more efficiently and much more quickly. That's interesting. So you guys do a lot. That's it. I mean, you've got global customers, you've got big customers.
When you have efficiencies in the technology you built and you do things the right way, the perception of how many people you need to do the job is much less.
Yeah, it's less about how many people you have and how good your code is, right? Like how good is your, and the same is true in so many things, right? If I'm hiring people to do my roof, I don't care how many people they're hired. I care about the quality of the craftsmanship, whether it's one guy that does the entire roof or 50 people that come and do it in less time. One guy that sucks is going to put on a horrible roof. 50 people and 10 of them suck. They're going to put on a horrible roof, right? So it's really more about the quality standards of the organization, right? And not about the number of bodies you throw at something.
It's not. And that's one of the things that, for us over the last 14 years, it was never about grow fast. It was about grow well. And, grow well, keep the promise to the people that have committed to you, that you've committed to protect them. And that's been something we've always held true to. It's part of our values is to never sacrifice an existing client for future revenue.
Yeah.
And because, if you do that, you'll keep those clients. And, our retention rate's been amazing the last 14 years.
You first came to my mind, to my attention, because a friend of mine went to work for you, and I bumped into him, and he just had great things to say about the organization. He was excited to tell the group of friends that we had there what he was doing and what you guys are doing as an organization, and you created a lot of good energy onboarding a new person, and that's not something that happens by accident. That doesn't happen because randomly. That happens because you've put time and attention into building a good onboarding process, and because the culture in the organization that onboarding process represents is true.
Yeah.
I've always said that 80 to 90% of employment brand is based on actual experience.
Yeah, it is.
Right? It's mostly about training leaders. It's about your operations. It's about your customer relationships and how you do work and how you collaborate together, right?
Yeah.
It's not about your logos and your messaging and your recruiting and your advertisements and all that nonsense.
Yeah, it's not. We haven't always been perfect. I mean, like you have ups and downs with, culture and team and struggles, in financial or whatever it is, maybe you hit a technology block, but you just got to keep going. You got to keep stepping forward and you'll figure it out.
When you think about the next, 2 years of Vigilant, as you kind of think ahead as a leader, what are your kind of big goals, or what's your vision or objective for getting through or getting to over the next year or two?
For the last 14 years, we, like I said, grow well. We did not want to, turn up the spigot of scale until we were sure that scale allowed us to do a couple things. One, not compromise. When you start to scale in security, and you what happens is, for a lot of companies, is their technology becomes commoditized. When that happens in cyber, it's just like giving your enemy your F-16.
Yeah. It doesn't matter that it's bad.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if it's the baddest machine in the air or whatever, if they've got it too. Right?
Yeah, if they've got it too, and they can figure out, there's all kinds of shell companies that buy cyber stuff all the time and put it in labs and test against it. We had to make sure that we were developing technology you couldn't derive what it can detect and what it can't from using the interface for it. So that was one of the things we wanted to get over. We wanted to make sure that we could fiscally scale well to protect our existing clients. We wanted to make sure that processes were down, and that from an organizational standpoint, we've got leaders that have the same why and that are really bought into that burn the ships model, because they have to care about the legacy part of it too. That's what we're really focused on, that foundational scale. So over the next couple of years, one thing we just did is we just got to that point where I'm no longer having to work in the business, which is great. Got an amazing team, and we've really worked hard to build an organization that scales well. And so you'll see, for us, a lot more global organization. Our brand was never about marketing in the direct marketplace. It was very much about working in channels and working with word of mouth. Even a lot of our larger clients came all from just
relationships,
and relationships. So you'll see a lot more from us, more directly in the marketplace, competing there, more head to head.
Yeah, to expand your footprint, expand your capability, your offerings to more customers and growth.
Yeah, and technologically, we've got a new platform coming out in the next couple of weeks. Actually, it launches.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Security is all about rapid deployment of new technology, right? You'll see the market a lot where there'll be a vulnerability that takes place and no one fixes it for 12 months, right? Or you'll see a problem come up and you can't rapidly fix it. And so security can tend to be very monolithic. And so the new technology that we're deploying out here is we've expanded on a lot of the concepts that we've been doing for the last 14 years, making sure things are invisible. So making sure they're not reliant on public technology. So like, for instance, when Russia hit Ukraine, there's DNS went down, for a majority of the United States.
Oh, okay.
Just for a little bit, Western United States. In fact,
I guess I didn't realize those were related. I didn't follow.
So went down. I actually have a map I can show. It's pretty interesting. Like within the few hours after that took place, it was more of Amazon, DNS and things like that that were public services. And if you think about, DNS going down, and it takes everything down. It took down Slack. Well, what is the technology that most security teams across the United States use to communicate? Slack, right? So our new platform has a lot more communication abilities to not have to operate within public services.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We built that in already, but not as robust as we have now. More full mesh communication, really capitalize on our distributed compute, and distributed analysis features, distributed storage across our platforms, which allows for faster processing across, of unused processing that's out there, right? If that makes sense.
Not quite.
Yeah. Okay. So for instance, you have a lot of technology that you have systems that the processor might not be used completely.
Okay.
Right. And so when that's happening, you can
you have excess processing capacity.
Yeah, you can increase processing capacity across multiple systems.
Interesting.
So inside organizations, for like, especially at the enterprise level, we can say, hey, let's process this over here, for them instead of there where it's not needed anymore. Yeah,
I see. Okay.
A lot more resilient systems. I mean, they're resilient already, but using those systems to be able to be more immutable. If that makes sense. Like right now, for us to rapidly deploy technology out to it, we've got to update the entire system. But now we'll be able to update just little modules.
Okay,
which
that's
is pretty cool. Yeah, and then that's on the back end, virtualizing that. So you'll see that platform come out, go into the cloud, which is pretty awesome. We already operate in the cloud, Azure, AWS, GCP, but we'll solve more challenges that the cloud currently has. Cloud's a pretty insecure place.
Yeah,
for sure. And a lot of people are just starting to realize that. That's why you see some retraction in the enterprise. They're going, oh, crap, we didn't know that. And we're coming back. So that platform will be in the cloud. And a lot more offensive approach from us. We have a lot of offensive. We already operate in the offensive, but a lot more covert offense inside an organization. Here's a good example of this is we had a threat actor from a nation state attack a organization here inside of a service organization in the United States.
Okay.
I would say most of us have heard this company's name.
Right.
But they put a tracking system in place to track their vehicles around the United States, and it was this beta test that they were doing. But this threat actor group attacked them to then go from them out to another nation.
Wow.
So they're using it as a jump point. When you use immediate offense, like, hey, I see this thing, an event happened, let's shut the process down. You actually minimize your ability to be resilient. Because what happens is you didn't learn anything.
Okay.
You didn't learn how the threat actor got in.
I see.
You didn't learn what's going on. You didn't learn any of that stuff. And so because of the way at which we detect in a covert way, because of the way, the amount of information we collect, which is about 10 times more, we create about 10 times more log information, analysis information, metadata, PCAP, things like that, of systems, of communications, than the majority of the way people do analysis today. So about 10 times more information.
I see.
It gives us a lot better ability to collect more information, gives us the ability to do more.
So before an incident even happened, you're already doing the research.
We're already doing
the
research on it.
Interesting.
So in this case, what we were able to do is we saw the threat actor take over that system. We saw that they posed no harm to the organization they were going after. They were literally just bouncing around. And so by doing that, we were able to talk to the organization. We also were able to find out who the threat actor was, which is pretty hard to do in a lot of cases because they hide themselves so well. But we found out who they were because we work with law enforcement and different organizations. We were able to call the FBI and we said, "Hey, we know who this threat actor is. We know what they're doing. They're not posing harm to this company, but they're attacking another nation, and that information's coming back through." We said, "Okay," and so they came down. They got involved in it. We all watched together. And we collected a lot of intel and information. The threat actor never knew that we had even found them in the environment. And then what we did was we just said, hey, organization's IT company, log on to the server. Go in this directory. Start doing a directory lookup, right? And because they were on the system, it made it hot. Like it was too hot for the threat actor because they're like, oh, someone's going to find us.
Someone's looking at us.
And they left.
Interesting.
And so... But we didn't do that.
You didn't have to tell them they were found. You just had to expose their shadows somewhere so they could be seen.
Yeah, and they never knew we were there. Didn't know we detected them. Didn't know we found out how they got in. We actually found out they got in through a 0-day attack against that beta technology they were using. Reached out to the vendor and said, "Hey, you need to fix this hole." They did. Done.
Wow. Right?
The threat never knew. So
that's impressive.
Have a lot more capability to do that more automatically.
This new platform. In your new platform. What's the name of the new platform? Is it named or productized?
It will be here.
It will be soon. Okay.
And then on top of that, we're releasing a new UI that goes on.
How soon is it going to be released?
So we go into beta in 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
So this is like production beta.
Okay.
And then so by the end of the year, it'll be
Very cool. That's exciting.
Yeah. And the UI, we're taking a lot of our tools that we've used through the years, making that available to our clients, which you just can't find those tools in the marketplace. So.
Well, as we wrap up, just for the sake of time, there's 1,000 more things I'd like to ask you, but as you look forward at the next couple of years with now more preparedness and interest in doing more marketing and kind of exposing your brand to more buyers, more customers, what's your biggest concern or biggest challenge around that? And what are you guys doing to overcome it?
Can I tell you what I'm most excited about and what our biggest challenge is?
Yeah,
okay,
please.
Cool. So biggest challenge, I think, is with any organization. When you grow, we are very different. We approach security different. We approach culture different. And when you bring people in to that without introducing them to the why behind we do things, or you can dilute your mission.
That's right.
And so that's part of why we didn't want to turn up the spigot.
That's a big risk every time you grow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we've built out onboarding, but not just training, but like really onboarding and the whys behind we do what we do, because we're a big. I read a book a while back called "Turn the Ships Around," and that book was all about driving decisions down into the organization, empowering your people, because we're all adults.
Yeah, that's right.
Treat people like adults, empower them to think, and have what he called intent-based leadership. So basically giving people the opportunity to make decisions, but not just saying, hey, now you're responsible for this decision, training them how. And the way he did that was he said, hey, I want you to start making decisions, but I want you to come back before you execute and say, I intend to do this. Then you can talk about it a little bit. Not say no, but like, hey, did you think of this? What about that? Because you want to train them to think like you, right? Where a lot of organizations make mistakes is CEOs have this ego around them that they're like, hey, I've got all this knowledge of how I make decisions. I got to protect the way I make decisions, and I'm the only one that can make them. It's dumb, right? And I've learned that over time. And so I want to teach our team why I make decisions the way I do. Because I'll actually learn the way they make decisions, and I might find things that are different. It's a trade. And so driving those decisions down, not being afraid to have them make them, but having that fail safe in some ways, so that interaction to say, hey, let's have intent. And we've grown that through the org, not just from me to everyone else, but throughout our leadership team.
That's a great mitigation.
And that's been cool. So great book, read Turn the Ships Around if you haven't. Cool. It's awesome. I think that's the thing I'm most concerned about, is ensuring that we maintain culture and that we maintain our whys behind we do it. When you understand the why behind why you're doing this, like for instance, we never release a client logo, ever. Okay. Right. Just hired a new VP of sales. She's amazing. Hey Vance, how you doing?
I'm sure that hurts her feelings, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. One of the conversations
she wants to brag about all your customers and all that stuff.
And she's like, well, why don't we release client names? And I was like, well, it's because if a threat actor can know,
then they can know who to avoid.
They know who to avoid. Yeah. They know what they're up against, right? And even in some of the recent attacks, like just take the company's logo, put it through Google image search, and you'll see all the security providers they use. That just gave dramatic intel to a threat actor. Yeah. And so part of our commitment to our clients is we'll never use you for marketing. We'll never use you to, in a way that would reduce your ability to secure yourself. We protect amazing logos.
Yeah. But that would be great value to you.
Great value.
For revenue, right?
And when she heard the why, she went, oh, that completely makes sense. And she goes, I am all about that. We're going to run with that. And she's excited about it. I don't care where she goes with it because now she understands the why. Right. And so it's just all about helping people understand, like, why did I make this decision? And then go make it better. Right. What I'm most excited about is, Vigilant isn't a company that we built, my team or myself or my wife and I, to go just right off into the sunset with a bunch of money in our bag and you leave. Right. That's why we're not for sale. We're not doing it that way. Doesn't mean our team won't make, good money along the way. And if we're efficient, our team will be paid very, very well, right? Sure. We'll all make money together and that'll be awesome. But what I'm most excited about, and the thing that I think a lot about, and, I talked to a lot of people about this, is the end of Schindler's List. he's realized, he's surrounded by everyone he saved. And he's like, wait a second, if I had just sold this or I just done that, I could have saved 3 more, and that could have been 5 more people, and that could have been 6 more, and that could have been 10 more. He understood the value of money. He understood the value of a watch because he had equated and said that this much money
equals a
person. And for me, growth at Vigilant isn't about our revenue number. It's about our capability. Because I know that when we go into an organization, I can guarantee that they will get the full force of our company and we will protect them. And I know from history that we can protect them better than any other cybersecurity company out there. And so for me, growth means more companies are going to stay in business.
And that means at the end of your life, as you're reflecting back on all of your impact, you're not going to be, wishing there had been 1 more or 10 more.
Right.
Or whatever.
And there you probably will. I mean, he did.
Right.
But then, it also means that as we grow and we have more capability, to build an organization that takes care of their team. We've been doing unlimited healthcare and unlimited vacations since we started. Companies are just starting to do that, right? But that's not all we do for our team. And our team looks at those things. And we had a few years ago, we were faced with this major increase in health insurance, and our HR team came to me and they were like, "What do we do?" And I was like, "Pay it." And in fact, make sure we have better insurance this year than we had last year. And that's the mentality of our company. And so more capability means that, because our team, we're all fighting for each other. They're not just fighting for me or just fighting for a shareholder out there. We're fighting for each other's long-term generational growth, right? And that's just not fiscal. It's mental and just the whole gamut, right?
Yeah.
We want to help generations of families with our team. And then third is externally. Every time we grow, we're helping more kids. Every time we grow. And so when you think of, when I think of revenue growth, it's all about capability. And the better we do what we do and the more efficiently we do what we do, we can be competitive in the marketplace and we can still go out and really dramatically change people's lives.
Dang.
So,
well, I wish you much strength and success in the war that you're fighting.
Thanks.
I commend you for all the people that you serve, your team, your customers, stakeholders that you give your time and money to.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being on the show.
It's a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Chris.
It's fun. Thanks.